Listen.
Posłuchaj.
Écoute.
Escucha. MCO.
Listen.
MCO.
MCO.
Between the bars.
Whoops. Accidents happen on tour. You heard the fatalistic opening chords to Mozart's opera Don Giovanni. And just before that, the sound of me under delusions of eternal youth jumping about 15 metres from a cliff into the Mediterranean Sea. That was my own short, sharp, and on the positive side, as was pointed out to me, relatively cheap midlife crisis. Well, I can assure listeners, no musicians, or their children for that matter, have ever been permanently damaged while creating the Mahler Chamber Orchestra. But, as you're going to hear now from oboist Emma Schied, emergencies do happen. I'm Yannick Dondelinger, this is Between the Bars, the podcast of the Mahler Chamber Orchestra, and welcome to the third and last episode of our mini-series, Kids on Board.
We were on tour in Boston. We'd gone to America. I think we'd had a concert in Paris. It was with Leifo Ansnes.
Yeah.
2015.
It was the Beethoven journey.
Mm-hmm. And we'd been in Paris. We'd had a flight via Heathrow, I think. It was an awfully long flight. We arrived really late in Boston. It was really cold, really cold.
It was
there
February.
were walls of snow and the bikes were...
You couldn't see the cars parked.
No, it was just incredible. And I basically had a seizure in the middle of the street on my own with Oscar. Basically like an epileptic fit.
Right.
But a one-off.
And you'd never had that before in your life?
No. I just, it was pretty scary. But at the time, of course, I had no idea. I have a blank of about 3 hours. And I woke up in hospital and they said, you've had a seizure and don't worry, we've got your son, because I was alone with Oscar. He was in a pushchair. And
on the street,
on
alone
the street,
with you.
Some people in Boston must have seen it happen. They called an ambulance. They came rushing. They asked Oscar.
How old was he
and he was
again?
like, "My name's Oscar Schied." He was 3.
3.
My name's Oscar Schied, and I live in the Coakley Square Hotel. He'd remembered we hadn't told him, and they called an ambulance, who then took me to the Mass Gen Hospital. Joff was in an art gallery. Nobody managed to contact him. And my parents turned up that day. I was supposed to meet them. And I didn't meet them, of course, because I was in the hospital. They had no idea where I was. They were waiting in the reception. Joff didn't see them. He was up in his room. And the hospital had called the hotel, who didn't pass on any messages. So Joff was up in his room, and then they knocked on the door. "Where are you? Where's Emma?" And he said, "What do you mean, where's Emma? She should be...
With you?
With you. She was going to meet... I left her. She was on her way to come and meet you." And then he went down to reception and said, "Something's happened to my wife and son." And then the hotel were like, "Oh, yeah, we had a message from the hospital. You have to call straight away." So he said he nearly puked on the desk. He was like, "Okay, call the hospital." And they said, "Please come, sir. Your wife and son have been involved in an accident." "What happened?" "Can't tell you over the phone."
What?
So they all jumped in a taxi, came to the hospital. And then, of course, Oscar was fine. He was with a...
Who was he with?
He was with a lovely lady. I think her name was Maddie, and she was playing snakes and something on the telephone with him. And he'd seen everything. So obviously his back was to me, so he didn't see me having the seizure, but it was violent. I had bleeding in my brain, right. And I had to be in hospital.
Yeah, what happened?
2 days. So 2 days in hospital. My parents were there. We'd booked a Airbnb in New York, and I slept practically the whole time. The other MCO members were amazing. They just sort of were a family around my family to sort of help them. They all travelled to New York without us, and I had to stay an extra day in the hospital. $25,000 bill waiting at home on the doormat, of course, because it's America. And it took me a long time to get over it. It was a big thing. And my dad went out with Oscar in New York, and they went to, I don't know, a newsagents or something, and he bought a drawing book of accident and emergency. And in there were all the situations. And we've still got it, the drawings of Oscar, of me on a stretcher. He drew everything, so he sort of got it somehow a little bit out of his system that he could then, you know, all those things, all the things that he'd seen and were confusing are then in this drawing book. It's absolutely amazing.
That's a huge story.
Yeah.
Johannes, can you top that?
Sorry.
No, I can't top that.
I don't think any.
One thing I do remember that was family, my father was terminally ill in cancer, long process. He had cancer for 3-4 years, lung cancer, never smoked, but still got lung cancer. So during that time, luckily I met him a lot. But in the end, I was on tour with MCO, and suddenly my stepmother called me and said, Johannes, maybe you should come home. I asked her, reading between the lines, should I wait a week or should I come home now? She thinks, I think you should come now. And then the good thing about traveling in Europe nowadays, it's very bad for the environment, but their flights go all the time. So I went to Brussels airport, there was a flight the next hour, straight home to Copenhagen. I took the train to Lund, where he was, and I saw him for 1 hour, the last 1 hour. And thanks to that she called me, my stepmother, to see that last hour of him, I'm still grateful today that I had that last time. So that was very emotional and a very good way of traveling, I must say, that I managed to come home and see him.
Yeah. Everyone was very emotional about that on the tour, I remember. Did you come back to the tour?
Yeah, which I was doubting. And then we talked to my brothers, what should I do? We thought if we all stay together, we're just going to cry for a week and be together and be sad. I thought, what is the best thing to do? And in the end, I decided, okay, I'm a musician, I have a job, I do this, and then I come back to him. I still have my father in me. And I was thinking, what would he want me to do? And what would I like in a situation like he would be, if I would be in that situation? What do I want my kids to do? So I made that decision. I think it was okay. For me, it was also good to be with friends in MCO in a difficult time like that.
And when you want to stay in contact with your father when he's on tour for long, how do you reach him?
Well, I call him on FaceTime or WhatsApp. If he's in another land, then we don't need to pay. Yeah, that's kind of how I reach him.
How is that working for you? You do FaceTime also with Yannick, or?
Yeah.
Is that nice?
Yeah, because then you can see his face too.
Do you FaceTime a lot with Yannick when he's away?
Yeah, but sometimes FaceTime doesn't work, so we have to do normal call.
Do you have daily contact with Yannick when he's away?
How do you mean? How do you mean then?
Like, do you talk every day on the telephone with him?
Not exactly every day, but we try to.
So now we're going to talk about touring in a digital world. How has digital communication changed over the years for parents on tour with MCO?
Yeah, to the better. I mean, now when you can have FaceTime with your kids. I mean, stupid conversation, stupid comparison, but I also have a dog. I can't have FaceTime with her because I don't think they can see it. They can't see the
You've
screen.
tried it, I'm
sure.
sure.
Yeah, I tried it, but she doesn't. But children are clever, so I mean.
Thankfully.
Yeah. So with them, you can have proper conversation. You can see them. So it almost feels like you you are there. Almost. And that was not possible when I met Sam.
No way.
Then mailing was okay, but not more than that. Calling, yes. And expensive calling.
Oh,
That's
gosh.
true. That's true.
How's the rise of screen time and social media affected being an MCO parent on tour? Is an iPad a good babysitter when you're in a 6-hour rehearsal?
I would say not. I mean, it's a useful tool to have occasionally, but no.
Right.
I think a necessity evil sometimes.
Yeah.
Or can I say that?
Evil,
Necessary evil.
Necessary evil.
Necessary
You just
evil.
need to have it sometimes, but it's never a good babysitter. I can't say it's never a good babysitter. You can, of course, try to do it positive by putting in learning things there and stuff like this. But it can help sometimes. But I think for parents, it's always good to try to
Activate the kids themselves.
Try to. And that's actually one thing, that's maybe a general thing as parenthood nowadays. When we were small, in the good old days, we were bored sometimes. And it was normal. Nowadays, kids, they don't want to be bored. They always want to,
But being bored is good
Being bored is
because
good
they
because
look for then other things to
that's
do
the
and they
thing.
become creative.
Yeah.
I think that's when Oscar comes to me and says, "Oh, I'm so bored," it's inevitably in a couple or minutes later or in the half an hour which follows, he's off
doing something,
sticking bits of cardboard together to make robots or mobile phone holders
Yes.
or whatever. Yeah, he's made so many things like that.
And
I
maybe
think they find things to do, and it's good for them to.
And maybe
By
in the
being
end, the
bored,
thing
yeah.
you find to do, for me, it was playing and listening to music, ends up being your vocation
Also,
in life. Okay, being on an MCO tour sometimes means parenting from a distance. You're away from home, your family has routines and schedules they need help with back at home. For example, on the positive side of screens, I've often had breakfast or dinner on video calls as a fun thing with my family. But I've also had arguments while trying to get my kids to do homework over video call. Your feelings about this?
Yeah, I mean, whatever, it's like anything. You do it on the
Parenting
telephone.
from a distance.
You do it on the telephone too. I think you have to have a partner who's at home and looking after all of those things. And sometimes it happens that Joff will phone me and say, "Oh, I'm tearing my hair out. I can't get Oscar to do X, Y, and Z." And then I'll say, "Oscar." And sometimes, I mean, usually it works.
It works? Authority from 4,000 kilometres
it's enough
away?
now. Or then they'll start arguing and I'll be like,
Oh,
okay,
you're a
I'm
megastar.
going now. At least you can
Yes.
put the phone down. It's like, whoop, you look after it.
Now this brings us beautifully onto the very last topic of this interview, the future. Children are the future of music. They're literally our future audiences, our future performers, professionals, amateurs, composers, journalists, writers, presenters, musicologists. How do you see the future of music education for children in your countries and in the countries that MCO performs in? So it's a kind of a loaded question, the future of music education. And I'm thinking specifically, I just happened to read in the news the other day about the drop in number of kids taking music at GCSE level in England. It's like a fall of 20-30% from a few years ago. And the fall of instrumental teaching in schools as part of the curriculum. What do you want to say to music establishments out there for the future of music education?
I think it's a shame because in Sweden it's very much a tendency to save costs. They cut down the culture schools. They don't hire new teachers. They rather put the money for culture, they put it into watching a film or instead of going to the concert halls. So they don't show the children, anyway, classical music. I don't know about other culture, but in classical music they don't have the same financial strength as they used to do. So the interest comes mostly now from musicians' kids. I mean, my 3 kids, they all play. because I play and my wife used to be a musician. I mean, she still is, but yeah. So the interest is there because of us, and that's not how it should be. I think it should be open for everyone who has the interest. But unfortunately, because of lack of possibilities in school, anyway, not as much as it used to be, and that's a shame. But hopefully it will change, because many children, when they start to play, they often find it really fun. And this El Sistema project that has now spread around has proven that it's really good in socially difficult areas. For instance,
El Sistema is an education, just to clarify, an education project from Venezuela to give children from all backgrounds there an opportunity to play music together, to do something socially together that's positive.
And it's not only to become professional musicians, it's more for them to just learn to play together and see that as a social thing, how good that is, to focus on something else than hanging outside the pub.
Exactly, because this is another question that parents often think. Does a child need to become a professional musician to make it a worthwhile activity at school?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. No. I've seen that on my 3 kids. They all play because I thought they should play, because it's a good thing to focus on. But to become a professional musician, that's a completely different topic. That's really up to yourself. If you want to, because also that's something that is more and more difficult nowadays, because the level is high, very high. Even minor orchestras have really high level for auditions. So that's something that you have to decide for yourself if you want to do that fight and win an audition. But just to play an instrument, there's so many benefits.
Right. And for parents out there who are wondering, should I put my energy and money into instrumental lessons for my young kids, maybe instead of football or extra math lessons, or which are very valid, or even less valid, PlayStations? What's the compelling argument? How has music helped you in your life and your children in theirs?
I have to say that when I was like in primary school, then we would sing every day together in assembly, and we had a wonderful music teacher, and everyone could learn an instrument. I remember doing projects in primary school where we would all be singing together. I think we did something called The Selfish Giant, and it's a one. I'm sure that all my sort of music making together with other people and communicating and the love of it comes from that. And I find it such a shame that now it seems so focused in school on what are you going to do as a career later? How are you going to earn your money?
Many technical subjects.
Yes, which is wonderful. I'm not saying it shouldn't be like that, but it's so important, like we said earlier, to nourish your spirit and to also learn other ways of communicating. I mean, the Field Music project that we did, which was this project that we did with deaf
children
and hard of hearing children around the world, was an absolute eye-opener on what music can bring even to children who can't hear with their ears or hear not so well. It's incredible what it can bring and how children can express themselves. I think also nowadays it's difficult sometimes for children to express what they feel with how they speak.
You mean also what they are going through,
yes, and
through their upbringing,
yes,
especially teenage years when you're trying to find yourself?
What we were saying about being able to communicate with the spirit, or it's incredible what you can say by playing music, how you can let emotions out or channel anger or fear or whatever through music. And I think it's something that we neglect, and unfortunately, that policies have to come from above.
I think it's very true because, go ahead.
No,
because
Johannes.
Small children, they all sing all over the world. I think singing is a natural way of making music. It's such a normal thing. But when you grow older, become a teenager, it becomes more personal to sing, because many people get nervous. They don't dare to sing anymore because they get so aware. But then to play an instrument instead, I had that from my own personal experience. I thought I can't sing, I'm a terrible singer. But playing the violin, I could kind of find the way of expressing myself in the violin instead. So it kind of helped you to come around this nervousness about singing to do an instrument instead. And there's so many benefits to play an instrument. It's not easy. None instruments are easy. So it's a long process, and it's so good to learn that as a child, that it's nothing you get straight away. You have to work, you have to be devoted, you have to work a little bit every day, but you can't just learn it straight away. And when they realize that they've practiced for a long time and suddenly they can play a melody and really beautiful, they often get really proud. And they know they've been doing the work. So I think it's a good life lesson for children to learn to play an instrument. It's also emotional, very good to be able to express something that is kind of for yourself. And it's a social thing but there school comes in. To have a school where everyone plays together, it's really fun. It's just pure fun.
And very lastly, for our own concerts we do in the future of our own profession and how we entertain audiences and what we give them, what do you think your kids would want to say to future concert hall directors, future orchestra chiefs, future festival directors? What do you think your kids will want to consume as audiences and play as performers?
Inclusion, I think, is a really important thing, that all ages, all creeds, all races are included in things, and that it's an open, it's a bringing together of people to get them to share experiences. And I think Oscar would say it's important that we are opening it up to many different people. And that, it's not just seen anymore as this exclusive thing of people with lots of money can go and listen to classical music concerts. It's not.
I agree, because when you play this concert where the cheapest tickets are 200 euros, you wonder, who are we playing for? And sometimes the audience is just full of people who want to be there more than actually really listen to music. So I believe one of the best things in the future should be to include. I like London Proms. You can always get a ticket for £5. The standing places. Everyone can afford that. £5 is okay. You just go there, you queue up, you get a ticket. You can see this, amazing. I think every festival should have that opportunity just to share the music. Any orchestra can do an open general rehearsal. So often we play general rehearsal and it's only for few invited people. I wonder why. Because of the secrecy of the music. It's too much sometimes. So I think for me, let people in. For example, people live in the town, give them a free concert, a general rehearsal, open rehearsal, just to see what music, how good it is, and open up for. I think also very important is for people who are a bit scared to go to concert, they don't know what they like. Let them ask questions, come and speak to us. So kind of educational concerts in a way, but more kind of information concert. That is not, this music comes from here and it really shows about these emotions. I know myself, if I go and see paintings, I would need help sometimes to understand some paintings because they're a bit mysterious sometimes. You don't really see the text, you don't see the information. Same with music. Some of the music is really, you have to be educated to understand. But with help, I think everyone can agree that music is just the best.
Hey, I have a last question for both of you. Imagine you are older. You're getting older every day, obviously. So maybe one day you earn a bit of money and you're still young and you want to go to the classical music concert. What do you think should be the future of concerts? What is interesting for you in the classical music world?
Well, small kids like our age, between 10 and 12, like we are. Then maybe not only listen to music, but only see a theatre as well. So music and theatre. So they have something to look at as well. So they use the eyes and their ears.
And would you also say it could be interesting if you would not have to sit always quiet on a chair, for example, in a concert?
Well, maybe when it's finished, or maybe in the meantime, they ask people to come up and do stuff with them.
Come up where?
To
the stage.
On the stage.
To do stuff with them.
Mathilda and Oliver are the future. The next Generation XYZ, whatever they may be. but they are also our children and are at the centre of the hearts and minds and telephones of Mahler Chamber Orchestra parents today as we travel the world, always 1 foot on stage and 1 foot at home. And maybe it's these distances we travel between our homes and our beloved orchestra, but also in our minds, between our music and our family, that mean we never take anything for granted. Journeying thousands of kilometres to perform at Carnegie Hall or the Proms or Santeri Hall can sometimes be a bittersweet pill to take, especially when 2 hours after takeoff, your 6-year-old daughter breaks a front tooth sledging, or halfway through a project, your son confides to you over FaceTime that he is being bullied at school. Well, believe me, it focuses you in a way you cannot imagine to be the best musician you can on stage and the best parent when you land home again. Between the Bars would like to say a huge thanks to Gil Kashameh, Till Fechner, Lisa Larson, Peter Mate, Mark Padmore, and all the other singers featured on the Mahler Chamber Orchestra EMI recording of Mozart's opera Don Giovanni, conducted by Daniel Harding. It's on Spotify now to listen to. And a special thanks to Mathilda Lörstad and Oliver Sundboy Dondelinger for taking part so freely and happily for this mini-series. And lastly, a massive thank you to MCO violinist Johannes Lörstad and oboist Emma Schied for all their insights and stories from 25 years of MCO history. Between the Bars team is Laura Thompson, Matthias Mayr, and me, Yannick Dondelinger, and is a production of the Mahler Chamber Orchestra. Don't forget, review episodes if you have time, and look out for the next stories from the Mahler Chamber Orchestra when we travel to Japan, discuss our outreach project Heimat, and explore the question, to be or not to be conducted. All coming soon. Keep listening.
Between the Bars.